Number 10, Victoria Falls Nightmare. Erin Langworthy is extremely lucky to be alive after her bungee cord snapped and she was dropped into crocodile-infested waters. The 22-year-old Australian woman wanted to celebrate the fact that she had just graduated college and went to visit Africa. On her journey, she decided to cross bungee jumping off her bucket list. She was traveling alone but joined a tour group to Victoria Falls in Namibia, where they would jump off a 365-foot or just over 110-meter bridge with the thundering falls behind them. She was nervous to leap off a perfectly good bridge, but she thought, hey, what could go wrong? Well, a lot could go wrong. And it did. Erin felt a tremendous jolt coursing through her chest when she was free-falling. She braced herself for the bounce back up, but instead she hit the water full force. Prior to striking the river's surface, she reflexively raised her arms to her face, which was the only reason she didn't black out. But the nightmare wasn't over. The water was full of crocodiles, and she remembered seeing plenty that morning. The current was strong and started to pull her downriver. She fought to breathe and thought her lungs were on fire. She struggled to keep her head above water since her legs were still chained together. At one point, the cord got caught on something and she was trapped below the surface. Somehow, she managed to dive down and pull herself free. 40 minutes had passed before she had finally pulled herself from the river and had been saved. Erin later found out that the cord ripped after falling for just 4 seconds. She fell from 130 feet up, or just about 40 meters. If she wasn't above the water, she surely would have died. The cause of the terrible accident was simple wear and tear on the cord from hundreds of bungee jumps from that bridge each year. She had amazingly survived both the tremendous fall and the deadly river. Her body was badly bruised and she fractured her collarbone, but she was alive. After spending a week in the hospital in South Africa, she was released. Number 9, Russian Daredevil. As if jumping off a bridge with only an elastic rope attached to your feet isn't crazy enough, a Russian daredevil decided to do it while hooked on by piercings on his butt. Yup, you heard that right. The cringeworthy stunt happened in St. Petersburg in March 2021. The man's name is Aid Adov, and he jumped off what appeared to be an abandoned warehouse some 50 feet or just about 15 meters in the air. He plunged towards the concrete floor before the rope pulled tight. He let out a disturbing scream as the tension was taken up by 4 metal rods passing through his buttocks. Then he just kind of swung back and forth, suspended only by 2 piercings in each butt cheek. When Adov posted the stunt, he explained the motivation behind it, saying, quote, he was an extremist who wanted to feel the whole range of existing pain sensations, end quote. And we're sure he did. He either wasn't aware of how much he was risking or he just didn't care. Adov claimed that he was the first Russian brave enough to attempt the stunt and only the second in the world. He now has numerous fans that can't wait for his next risky video. And if it's as dangerous as this one, he could be in for a world of pain. No buts about that. Number 8, Death of a Rising Star. Amber Bellows was only 28 years old when she died in a base jumping incident at Zion National Park in Utah in 2014. Bellows was a rising star of the extreme sport, but no one could have predicted that her wingsuit would fail and she would ultimately fall nearly 2,000 feet or just over 600 meters. Her husband of just 2 weeks and base jumping partner, 29-year-old Clayton Butler, told officials that they had hiked up to Mount Kinnisava, a rugged route in the southwestern corner of Zion. The Salt Lake City couple were said to be experienced base jumpers, in which participants leap from fixed objects such as mountains or buildings, using parachutes to slow their falls. Butler could see that his wife's parachute didn't deploy correctly, and he dived after her, but tragically, he couldn't reach her in time. Bella's death was the first ever base jumper fatality in Zion National Park. The risky activity is actually illegal within the park. Despite this ban, though, base jumpers flock to the park every year to partake in the sport within the premises, though thankfully no one had gotten hurt before this. Mount Kinnisava itself is a region that is not regularly maintained, and it isn't recommended to visit. Due to the difficult terrain of the area, the search team couldn't locate her body until the next morning. Using a helicopter, they were able to hoist her broken body to a nearby waiting ambulance. Number 7, Feet First. Rishi Baveha is a British citizen who survived a botched bungee jump from 165 or just about 50 meters. Despite the fact that the bungee jumping service operator had a perfect safety record of 100%, a nervous Rishi said a prayer and made the leap from the tall tower in Thailand. As Rishi put his arms out and jumped feet first toward the green water far below, He had no idea what a rush his first bungee jump would actually turn out to be. When he came to the end of the bungee cord, it snapped away from his feet and he smashed chest first into the waters at a speed of about 80 miles per hour or just under 130 kilometers per hour. If Rishi had hit headfirst, he surely would have been killed or at least suffered severe brain damage. Instead, with his chest taking the brunt of the impact, he came away with 2 collapsed lungs, a torn liver, and a ruptured spleen, among other injuries. He then spent a month in the hospital recovering, and will go through the rest of his life without his spleen, which had to be removed. In the subsequent investigation, there was some debate about the instruction Rishi got before he jumped. He said the instructor just told him to put his arms out and leap. The company Jungle Bungee Jump, which claimed 17 years of accident-free operation before the jump, said Rishi was supposed to go off head first and not feet first. According to the company, by leading with his feet, Rishi made the bungee cord detach. Regardless of who was to blame, Rishi chose not to play the finger-pointing game and not to sue the corporation, while also not renouncing high-adrenaline pursuits in the future. He said that his brush with death has given him a brand new appreciation for life. Number 6. Grandpa Base Jumper. A senior citizen in Virginia has proved that you're never too old to do something crazy. Police arrested 70-year-old Chuck Moser for doing several insane base jumps off of a random tall building. One of them was the Tyson's Corner building, just 360 feet or over 110 meters tall. Police originally suspected him of doing 6 base jumps off of all the tallest buildings in Virginia back in 2008 and 2019, but by the time the police could build up a case against him, the statute of limitations had already expired. But in 2021, the Fairfax County Police were finally able to arrest him on 3 counts of misdemeanor trespassing. This is because between 2020 and 2021, he went on to do more base jumps around Northern Virginia. One of the jumps was from the Capital One campus. Even more ludicrous, and actually pretty funny, is that Chuck has denied all the allegations against him, claiming the charges are ridiculous. He says the police have no proof he did anything, except that there's a video of him jumping off the Tyson's Corner building. When asked about it, Chuck said it wasn't him, and because they can't actually confirm his face or his fingerprints, they had to drop the charges. Chuck is a former military man who operated with the Army's 101st Airborne Division, specializing in air assaults. It seems Chuck still loves jumping even after his Army days, and even if he's 70 years old. Would you let your grandpa base jump? Would you be able to stop him? Let us know in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. Number 5. Skyline Wedding. In 2018, a groomsman took the saying break a leg a little too seriously when he went ahead and actually broke his leg. It happened after he crashed into the side of a cliff during a base jump gone horribly wrong. The man was attending a bizarre skyline wedding. This is when the people tie the knot on a net strung between some cliffs, some 107 meters or 350 feet above the ground. It's a pretty wild ceremony. It was being held in Moab, Utah. The groomsmen launched themselves off the cliff just before the wedding vows were supposed to be recited. But for one unlucky groomsman, he ended up crashing into the side of the cliff, tumbling down to the ground and fracturing both of his legs. Even though the fall injured the groomsmen, the show must go on. Even with one man getting lifted off to the hospital, the ridiculous wedding in the sky continued. David Lafargue, the quote, flower girl, jumped off the canyon with a trail of petals floating behind him. Number 4. Katie Connell. Katie Connell was a base jumper whose tragic final leap was recorded by her companion's GoPro in January 2016. She died during a 300-foot or just over 90-meter jump from Bixby Bridge in Big Sur, California, after missing her landing target and getting swept away by a wave. Her companion, Finnish skydiving instructor Rami Kajala, had over 2,500 jumps under his belt. He jumped after her in an attempt to save Connell and ended up drowning himself. The pair was presumed dead after the footage of Connell's last leap was found on the beach. The 30-year-old Knoxville, Tennessee native had been living in Ventura, California, with a family's friend while on a nursing contract for a few months. She used to work regularly as a travel nurse and loved skydiving, base jumping, travel, and adventure. Connell had actually started skydiving as a method to get over her fear of flying. Her friends expressed that she knew the risks of the extreme sport and she always took necessary precautions. She was known as an inspiring person and took joy in spreading her own love of adventure. Number 3. The Late Late Breakfast Show. In the mid-1980s, the BBC's The Late Late Breakfast Show was recognized for doing some of the most dangerous stunts on British television. This involved rescuing someone from an exploding chimney by helicopter, attempting a 230-foot or 70-meter car jump, and performing a human cannonball stunt. All of these ended horribly, but the most tragic of all was the death of Michael Lush in 1986. He died while rehearsing a live stunt called Hang 'em High, which entailed jumping from an explosive box hanging from a 120-foot or 37-meter crane. Lush fell to his death after the carabiner clasp that held his bungee cable to the crane snapped. He died instantaneously as a result of various injuries. This led to an immediate cancellation of the show. The production crew was subsequently accused of many safety infractions. One of the tests in the investigation found that the carabiner sprung loose 14 times out of 20 under the weight of a bag of sugar. Number 2. Long rope. A bungee jumper recently fell to his death after jumping off a bridge in Sao Paulo, Brazil. The tragedy happened because the rope was too long. The victim's name is Fabio Ezequiel de Morales, and he went bungee jumping with his wife, his brother, and his young son. His whole family witnessed the moment he slapped the ground and cracked like an egg. Obviously, no one could have anticipated what was going to happen. Everyone was excited and cheering, and they were waiting for him to bounce back. The screaming didn't start until that final second when everyone realized he was going to hit the ground. Fabio was immediately rushed to the hospital, but there was nothing they could do to save him. He was pronounced dead as soon as he got there. But there is a silver lining. Fabio had actually planned to take his son on the jump with him, but at the very last moment, he changed his mind and chose to do the jump alone. The sudden change of heart saved his son's life. Number 1. Adrenaline Mom. A thrill-seeking mother of 3 died after falling 82 feet or 25 meters after a communication breakdown caused her to jump off of a building without properly fastened to her cable. The freak accident occurred in early October 2021 in Karaganda, Kazakhstan. In the disturbing footage, 33-year-old Yevgenia Leontaneva is seen atop a hotel roof in preparation to partake in, quote, rope free-flying, a bungee-style stunt invented in the 1990s. Off-camera, a man can be heard shouting, "I love you," as Leontaneva, who was allegedly an experienced jumper, is strapped into a safety harness. She jumps off of the roof after a brief countdown. The daring stunt, however, goes horribly wrong as she crashes to the earth with a terrible thud, shocking bystanders, including a friend who was supposed to jump after her. Before the ill-fated jump, Leontaneva and her friend posted the quotes, "Live it up, and we're going to fly," on social media. The mishap occurred when the woman was given permission to jump before the organizer could secure her safety rope to the tree. He was holding the lifeline in his hand as she took the leap. Leontaneva plummeted 82 feet or 25 meters to the ground below, where she was dragged 12 feet or just under 4 meters sideways into a wall. Meanwhile, the force of her fall yanked the rope-holding organizer to the floor, which can also be seen in the unedited video. The daredevil was immediately rushed to the hospital, where she received emergency surgery and a craniotomy was performed. But sadly, Leontaneva succumbed to her injuries and died. Authorities are looking into her untimely death and the extreme sports company's, quote, negligence. This wasn't the first time a bungee jumper had died due to an organizer negligence. A similar accident happened in July of that same year. A Colombian bungee jumper plummeted to her death after a communications mishap caused her to leave off of a bridge without a fastened cord. Thanks for watching. Would you rather bungee jump off of a tall, sketchy bridge or jump out of a perfectly good airplane with a parachute? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time on The Bad Badger.